Well, we think it's about time to start, and there are 30 people present, so that's pretty good turnout. We're pretty happy with that. So we'll go ahead and get going here. Welcome once again to a virtual tour of the Balkans. We're so flattered that people came back. We just wonder if we're at all interesting, honestly. I will mention that you're muted. If you want to talk, you would have to hit the microphone button on your computer screen to talk to us. You're welcome to do that if you want to interject something. You're also welcome to send any questions or anything like that to the chat. We wanted to open by simply asking if anybody had any questions left over from last week. We've already gotten one regarding the church in Belgrade, and Amy's responded to that in the chat. But we're wondering if any other questions are outstanding or if anybody needed some information about something they didn't get last week. So we'll give a moment to pause. Okay, hearing none, we'll act as though you're ready to move on. So last week, it was the entirety of the Balkans. This week, it's a bit narrower. It is Bulgaria alone. We didn't talk at all about Bulgaria last week because we were saving it. Bulgaria is where we have spent most of our time in the Balkans. It is not radically different in any way from the other portions of the Balkans we've seen, but we have a whole lot more photos. When we pulled up our photos to go through for this, we found that each of us had nearly 1,000 photos. So it was an interesting challenge to try to narrow this down to an amount of information we cover in an hour. I will mention that next week we will be focusing completely on Plovdiv, which is the town in Bulgaria where we live. It's the little yellow pin on the map on the screen. We also have thousands of photos, well, hundreds anyway, of photos of Plovdiv. For the tour here in Bulgaria, we wanted to start with food. Food's always of interest to everyone. We open by saying we really enjoy the cuisine here.
We love the food here. We did have a question real quick, just a little recap, just in case you missed last week. Why did we choose Bulgaria and how long have you lived here? We adopted our daughter here in 2004. We've been back between 2003 and 2025, 12 times to visit. And we decided to retire here. We moved here in March of 2025. So,
yeah.
And
so we've been here just over a year. Not quite. We'll be here 14 months in about a week.
Yeah. So a little bit of a background on that. Food, always near and dear to my heart. Because if I don't like it, I'm not going to be happy where we are. I actually selected this first because I wanted to showcase a very traditional Bulgarian breakfast. This is much more elaborate than normal, I would say, because what we usually see, hold on.
All is well except for our screen.
Click on the bunny. This small plate with now the red dot on it. It's kind of like a cheese pie. It's called banitsa. It's phyllo, butter, egg, and a white cheese here in Bulgaria. I'd say feta, but I live in Bulgaria. I can't say that.
Actually, there's a legal fight right now as to whether you can call anything feta if it was made outside of Greece. So
it's called sirene, and so it's with a saltyish cheese. It's really quite yummy. That is very traditional, and we have that actually a lot. But over to the larger plate, it's common to have eggs and always meats of some kind. Traditionally, there are the three colors of the Bulgarian flag: the red tomatoes, the green cucumbers, and the white sirene cheese. A couple of options for some cheeses there. Here, actually, they've included a couple of little sweets on a plate. There's always a coffee of your choice. And by coffee, I mean espresso or cappuccino. And usually a juice of some kind. In this case, I think that's orange. But this is a very traditional, if you had a plated breakfast here in Bulgaria, most breakfasts in hotels are buffet.
They are not a continental breakfast at the buffets in Bulgaria, however, and we'll be showing you that as we get to it.
Moving on.
So another breakfast, you can see crepes, cheese inside, and then wrapped with meat, always veggies. And every breakfast includes a little bit of a salad or just some chopped food or vegetables.
And here's from a bakery, different kinds of breads, phyllo pastry on the right, more of a wheat and gluten on the left. Again, with cheeses, These roughly, on the left, it's roughly 70 cents US, and on the right, it's about half that. So 60, 65, or 50, 55 cents.
Yeah.
So
More food than you're likely to eat for less than $1.
Yeah.
I will mention that you can see on the signs that it's in both Cyrillic and in Bulgarian, so Cyrillic characters, and then translated into English. That's nearly universal here. If you want to order from a menu, you're going to find what you want in English in most places.
here's probably the national dish of Bulgaria on the left. It's called a shopska salad, again, representing the colors of the Bulgarian flag. Red tomatoes, green cucumbers, white cheese. Sometimes they'll throw in some peppers. Oil and vinegar is the only dressing I've seen really around. And then a bowl of traditional bean soup. I think that's a bean soup.
Yes.
And on very traditional Bulgarian pottery also.
This is what's most common here too, is lots of sausages. We mentioned last week that throughout the Balkans, it's a mix of the Mediterranean diet with lots of tomatoes, cucumbers, that sort of thing. Almost no lettuce, by the way, in salads, but lots of sausage, lots of pork. We mentioned there's a lot of chicken, some lamb, but not very much beef at all. But people look at you oddly if you order a meal without meat, unless you just get a shopska salad.
Remember this? Okay.
No, I don't. Amy makes the mistake of starting sentences with "Do you remember?" and the answer is always no.
This is a little less traditional. If you've been to Germany and Turkey, donors, which are like gyros, it's meat, shaped meat in a wrap of some kind. We were in a place called Senevgrad. It's close. We're going to show you some photos of this. And this was their amazing donor sandwich with fresh made bread. And it was a stunning chicken meat sandwich. So
it's very seasoned meat too. The donors have a really nice, strong flavor to them.
This is overwhelming.
This is not one person's meal.
4 people ate off that gigantic wood board.
And we left some. This is a very common grill here. As you can see, it's got multiple types of sausage in it. It's got beans in either corner, and opposite corners are cabbage. It's essentially coleslaw, but it's the dressing is, as Amy said, oil and vinegar. That's pretty much all that is used as a dressing. Although there's a lot of mayonnaise used, it's only used on sandwiches. It doesn't end up in salads.
The other thing on here that I will point out are the potatoes. I don't know how they do it, but our Canadian friend who came at Christmas said, I do not know what they do to Bulgarian potatoes, but they are the most buttery, best tasting potatoes. They're also really small when you buy them. They're very small when you buy them.
Yeah, they're actually almost sweet.
Yeah, they're really good. Like Yukon Golds.
At this point, you can recognize that we really do enjoy the food. We talk up the food.
And here's an example of what you find around, especially festivals and things. Huge grills set out, huge meats, some chicken, but mainly pork. There's beef, there's some lamb sometimes, but beef is probably on the lower end of what's available.
Yeah, far less common.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go shopping. Oh, wait, we should stop and say, are there any questions about the food here? Or has anybody had a particularly good experience with food in the Balkans? Is there anything you might want to mention?
No.
Okay.
This is
once again, it's food, but this is the bulk of what you find in stores. Most of they have huge coolers full of all kinds of processed meats. Not so much just cut meats.
But this isn't like, I want to be clear, this isn't like this came from Hormel. These are family and local farms that have created these dried and aged meats. So just perspective.
Yeah. And we have to go a long way to get to one of these coolers. It's almost 50 yards across the parking lot from our apartment door to get to a place that just sells meats like this. They also have some not only prepared, but actually cooked meats that are available for pickup. They send a lot out at between 4 and 6 p.m. Lots of people stop and pick up meats for dinner.
Here's another bakery you've seen some of this already, but a variety of things. Sometimes things are stuffed with some apple filling. In the fall, it's pumpkin filling, which is amazing. It tastes really good. But
You'll notice that here it's wrapped sausages and something rather like a croissant. Most of them are just cheese filled, however. Lots and lots of cheese. And this is Amy's favorite meal.
I hate olives.
Amy really hates olives. And
Not
it's
a good place for me, but
we have been to olive stands that had as many as 200 different types of olives, ranging from very early green olives to very ripe black olives, and prepared in I don't know how many different ways. I don't know how they get that many different ways of processing olives to make them ready for sale, but they make a lot of olives here.
we may have shown this before in a broader sense. This is a large farmers market in the capital city of Sofia, which is about an hour and a half away or closer when I drive. And this is the peak of summer, so you can see it's very, very full. They tend to be a little bit thinner. And then here we go. Here's some of those potatoes I was talking about, a little smaller, but you cannot, I would say starting in May and going through early October, we could live on vegetables alone. So I know that you asked about, it looks like it might be tough to live here as a vegetarian, not in the summer, not in the summer. As long as you're seasonal with your, as long as you're seasonal with
They aren't seeing that, Amy. You can just calm down about it.
As long as you are seasonal with your selection, you will have amazing vegetables, cabbage in the fall, etc. The statement was made, we are advised to avoid processed meats. How is the health of Bulgarians? These meats are processed very differently. These are not nitrate-filled meats.
Yeah, you buy something from among these processed meats, you need to be prepared to eat it. It's not going to last more than a few days.
I've had a lot go bad in the refrigerator.
Yeah, we aren't yet appropriately schooled on eating in Bulgaria.
And say in terms of the health of Bulgarians, so they eat well, they eat amazingly well, but they also smoke, and that's what's going to kill them.
It is a problem. They actually have among the lowest life expectancy in Europe, unfortunately. But that's mostly attributed to heavy smoking and more than a little bit of alcohol.
There's nothing wrong with the alcohol.
Well, okay.
Are you sharing again?
Yeah, it's all fine. You can see there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's hard to go off mic and have these conversations, so we're just going to have to reassure each other.
Fresh peppers, again, a staple here, very common.
It's interesting. These are not chili peppers. They have the flavor of bell peppers, although a little bit more sweet. You don't see bell peppers here very much. You see these thinner, skinny peppers.
Here are some nuts and some seeds. Again, mostly nuts, maybe some beans.
There's some
very
dates and figs at the bottom.
Common shops here as well.
Yeah, lots of nuts. It's very easy to find roasted nuts.
And here are all of the seeds, pumpkin and others to enjoy.
Yeah, these are not for planting. These are edible.
An amazing spice shop. I would be in there with my camera turned on the side with Google Translate, showing me Bulgarian into English, everything in here. Again, this isn't Sofia, but I know there's a shop here in Bulgaria.
It's interesting, though. Amy points out we do use our camera with Google Translate a lot to get translations from Cyrillic. I mentioned earlier that most of the signage is in both Bulgarian and English, but for some odd reason, and I think it's probably because they don't anticipate tourists being interested in purchasing, the spice shops don't translate. So you get the interesting challenge there. But
it's all workable with technology.
Yeah, one of the things that's a little different here is I do most of the cooking, which is not the little different thing, but I'm a little bothered by the fact that spices are either sold in large bulk. These are probably 2-liter jars of spices that you would have to buy from, or in tiny little envelopes that you almost certainly would use as a single serving, which of course means that it's very fresh. It's not sitting around in your cupboard for years and years, but it's a little weird to have to go buy another packet of marjoram when I need one.
Some pretty traditional European desserts. I wanted to showcase they're really into more of a patisserie style, but also the bread and butter of desserts here are traditional Turkish type desserts like baklava and sütlaç, which is a rice pudding, and some other more Turkish related desserts.
And actually, she's been saying desserts, and they're certainly available as desserts, but they're more commonly consumed as something at the buffet. You would mid-afternoon, you might get a snack of one of these things. What is shocking to me is how little sugar there is in them.
Yeah.
They're not particularly sweet.
No.
I'm not looking forward to coming back in the US and trying sweets because I think I'm going to be a little bit overwhelmed.
On to street art. And before we get there, well, I'll just go ahead and go into it. There is a village that's north of Plovdiv. The name is Staro Železare. It is a place of about just over 400 people. I just looked that up to make sure I got the size. 404.
That's twice the size of the town I grew up in, Nile.
And it's a husband-wife pair. The husband.
These are not the husband and wife pair.
The artists are a husband and wife pair. He is Bulgarian. He's from this village. His wife is Polish. They live in Poland. They come here every summer with a group of students to create art in the village. We're going to walk through some of this. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but they've done such an amazing job of incorporating their village into their art. For example, the one that I'm showing you, I don't know who the person is on the left. She may be a villager, but the woman on the right is definitely someone who was at one point alive in this village. So we'll walk through some photos and show you. There's the Queen Mother and someone from the village.
They weren't actually together, by the way. They took artistic license.
There's Castro, Bobby Kennedy, and a lady in the village.
John
Kennedy. Sorry.
John Kennedy. Yeah, so it's very interesting how they mix an awful lot of American symbolism.
And just so it says, "Let's make America great again." This was done a while ago. So there's a lot of political art. We left a lot of it out of here. So I saw it on TV show once. Money's missing. This is the European concept of life. Even if they changed your brain, it wouldn't do any good. I want to climb a tree and turn back from the path of evolution. And God Save America. That's Kamala on the end.
Yeah, it's lots of political figures from throughout Europe as well, but we just don't know who they are.
And
although we do know that guy who's being yelled at by Gargamel
and you can see this is actually on the edge of this is a wall, and right behind it are animals. This is a barn with hay in it in the middle of the town. So some pretty good artwork. This was from a few years ago.
You need to be patient.
And here we are, again, very traditional Bulgarian life. You've got people with sheep or goats walking through town, and there they are.
It does give the impression, and it's a reasonable one, this art is all along all the walls on both sides. It's not completely filled in, but it will be someday soon. Here an art crime was
committed.
You might notice everything's in English.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I don't think Yoda ever was on a swing with this woman from this village either, but she seems to be having a good time.
And the name, I'm writing it in, is Staro. And this says in Cyrillic and Bulgarian, now the most important thing is peace.
This is not in that village.
Completely different.
This actually happens to be in a village where they think major Greek hero was born. I don't remember the name offhand. Do we have? It's not.
No, it's not.
But we just thought this odd. It's just a row of mannequins dressed up, stuck in somebody's yard. There probably were 30 homes in this village. It wasn't a big city.
So we thought maybe it was Halloween related, but we captured it and we thought we're going to show this.
Yeah,
it varies.
But street art is very important in Bulgaria. Any town you go into, any city at all, but certainly even most villages, you will see lots of painted street art on the walls. Not graffiti, not tagging, but literal art. And in fact, much of it funded by the municipalities to just make the place a little more decorative. One of the advantages, it means they don't have to depend on the building owners to paint. They'll just paint the wall in a mural and then it's covered.
And now,
we didn't know how to fit this in any category, but you should know about it.
yeah, it's just different enough. So there's a tradition on March 1. It's called Baba Marta Day, where everybody wears little red and white bracelets to represent the beginning of spring. It's grandmother's March, the first day of spring, March 1. And you're supposed to wear your martinitsa, the little red and white tchotchkes kind of things.
Yeah, they're bracelets, they're pins, they're all kinds of different styles.
Until you see your first stork. Well, we're on this flyway for the storks here from Africa into Europe. So we see storks, and here's a pretty low, that was a pretty small nest, frankly.
Yeah.
This is the largest nest I've ever seen. And this happens to be in the town we took the art from, the street art. This is Staro Jelazar. And it's hard to see, but there are small birds' nests inside that multiple level. It's like a bird condo.
Yeah, it's not storks moving into the sides. It's smaller birds that are just taking advantage. But these storks' nests, they put up, as they do in the US, in Oregon, there are lots for the waterfowl. They put up platforms on the top of poles specifically for storks to nest on. Storks use the same nest throughout their adult lives, and they continually build on them. They can easily weigh 500 pounds, some of them as much as 1,000 pounds, which means you got to have a pretty solid platform for them to build on, or they're going to collapse. They usually raise a couple of young in those each year. It's pretty impressive how they manage this.
Everybody in Bulgaria is awaiting the storks. It means the weather's going to change. It's a good thing. So it's kind of fun. So now we're moving on to some monuments, and these are human-made monuments, just of different kinds, I'll say. The first one here this is Devil's Bridge. This is in southern Bulgaria. And if you can see on the kind of downward, Jan's pointing on the left side of the bridge down by the water, there are two people for perspective. So you have an idea of how large this is. Roman, right?
Yes, this was built by the Romans.
So
this is the same bridge. This is the causeway to get across there.
And we're talking kind of in the middle of nowhere, at least my perspective.
Yes, there is no road on either side anymore. It's just this bridge out in the middle of nowhere. A photo similar to this may be familiar to you, by the way, because it shows up in Windows 11 screensaver all on its own periodically.
This is the monument of the Bulgarian-Soviet friendship. It's located in Varna, Bulgaria. It's on the coast. You'll see it's in brutalist art style. On the left are the women. They've got bread, they've got a basket, they have flowers. And then on the right, you have the Soviet soldiers, probably 1944, thinking everybody's happy, we're welcoming them, yay. This is one of the leftover monuments.
This one has been tagged a bit, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's not street art anymore for the most part. Some people would consider artistic. I think it's ill-placed.
This is the Arch of Freedom. It's actually in the Central Balkan range. You can see it driving from the south toward the mountains. You can see this huge thing. It is really impressive. And I suppose. And anyway, it was put together, I think in the when did I say this was built? Well, I don't have it when it was built. One side is representative of 1944, when the Russians, Soviets came into Bulgaria and assumed a permanent relationship in Bulgaria. And then the other side is 1878, which is the year that the Russians helped oust the Ottomans from Bulgaria.
Yeah, the Russians are very well received here for the most part. Just wanted to zoom in a little bit to show you this too is using that same brutalist style. You can understand why they would name it that, but it's very common.
Here they are again. And everywhere you go, there is a Bulgarian flag very honorably flying. It's very important.
It's not like the US though. People don't fly them on their homes all that much or anything like that, but certainly on any of these monuments that would be one nearby.
This is in Drianovo, which is kind of north central Bulgaria, central Bulgaria. There was a band of rebels at a monastery. We'll show you a monastery in a little bit. They were involved in defending the monastery during the 1876, 1878 uprising against the Ottomans. And most of the fighters were killed during that time.
Kind of reminds me of the Alamo, but
kind of, yeah. On to churches. Lots of churches here.
By the way, I'm going to pause for just a moment and mention we have lots more photos of things like monuments, but it turns out an hour isn't very long. So we had to cut way back on this. So this church is St. Stephen's Church. It's in Nesebar, Bulgaria, which is right on the coast. It's built in the 11th century. This is one of those things that I talked about last week where it's just a shock to me to see such old stuff that you just don't see this sort of thing in the US. This is Hagia Sophia Church, which is also in Nesebar. It's obviously not in use any longer. The roof and one wall are missing. It's much older. It's from the 5th century, stretching into the 6th for construction. So quite a long time ago. In fact, that would have been only about 100 years after Christianity came to Bulgaria, what is now Bulgaria. It wasn't yet then. One of the things that really shocked me in this situation, really brought home the age of this, is if you turn around from where I'm standing taking this picture, directly behind me was a 4th century Roman bath, a very large bathhouse. And it just really is very striking how old things are and how things just juxtapose in the various eras of history here.
Here we are actually pretty close to the Danube River along the north side of Bulgaria. These are rock-hewn churches and monasteries in Ivanovo, Bulgaria. And the monks started living in the caves around 1220 and then started really carving these out in the 1600s. The frescoes were amazing in here, as is my daughter and my husband.
Actually, the very fact that the frescoes exist is amazing, yeah. But what you see of them, it's very long ago and it's not well sheltered, but they held up pretty darn well. That's back when my beard wasn't quite so whitey.
We've moved on to which is kind of central Bulgaria. This is the Nativity Church. It's been pointed out that it's actually kind of a short church and it was built into the ground because it was built during Ottoman times. And at that point in time, there were limits on how high churches could be built.
Christian churches in a Muslim
area.
Yeah.
Something about the height of the leader, the Ottoman ruler on horseback. I think this has been augmented a bit, but anyway. Here's an outside view. You can see the windows are pretty low. Like I could crawl in through the window. But this is what's inside. And this is a stunning, stunning church. Beautiful frescoes in here. Pretty small church. And actually what I find interesting, no pews. These are wooden. It's a wooden frame that you lean back against. You'll have a place for your arms, under your arms to rest, but no seating.
And these would only be used by the elders in the church, not church elders, but people who are elderly and don't feel comfortable standing. Most people just stand in the midst of the narthex, I believe it's called.
Here is the Russian church in downtown Sofia. It is St. Nicholas Church. It used to be a mosque. You might imagine there was a problem with that after the Ottomans left. It was burned down in the 1870s when the Ottomans were kicked out. And then this was built on that site in 1882.
The Russian churches are not nearly so common as the Orthodox churches that we've been showing you. Most all the large cities have one somewhere. And then there are a few in the countryside, but not very many. But they're always marked by these large onion domes, they're referred to as, and most have gold on the onion dome.
This happens to be a very small chapel way in the mountains somewhere, and we'll take you to there at the end of the presentation. Just goes to show that I think this was from the 1400s, a very small chapel built in the wilderness. The mountains are called the Stranja, as in strange. Nobody lives in these mountains. It is a very remote place.
Yeah.
So
just a close-up of some of the things sitting around. Icons of this sort are very common here, and not only are they in churches, but you can buy them in shops everywhere.
I've got some of them.
Yeah, we have a few on the wall.
And just some more. Here's the rafters. This is probably, I hate to say it, of a church or cathedral, is the showpiece of Bulgaria. This is one of the two showpieces. This is St. Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. It's about 34,000 square feet. They started building this in 1882, so after the Ottoman occupation, and they finished it in 1914. You can fly in at night, or you can fly in the day, you can fly in at night. It's illuminated. You see this from the sky, you know where you are. It's pretty cool to come in and see this.
Yeah, when she says illuminated, it is. It is very brightly illuminated. It's hard to miss.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful. And then a beautiful, there's the gold. And who brought the gold?
The Russians in the 1980s donated the gold. What gold had been here had kind of washed off, and they donated quite a valuable collection of gold to put onto these domes across the entire cathedral, pardon me.
Here is one of the many doorways, very simple wooden doors, beautiful mosaics above. We're going to zoom in and you can see this. Again, more of the saints. And then inside, I wish they would close and take care of candle smoke that has just taken over, coated for, a couple centuries now. But
no longer candles inside except for worshipers lighting a candle now and then. These candelabras used to be candles. They are now lights.
And it's rather dark to see. I'm sure underneath what the smoke left, it's quite beautiful, but still beautiful floors, beautiful, easy to see lower paintings and frescoes as well. And some elaborate religious scenes. That's St. Helena on the left and St. Constantine on the right. They're very well represented in Bulgaria.
St. Constantine was the person who brought, he was the Roman emperor of the East, Constantinople, and he's the one who allowed the broad observation of Christianity. So he's had quite an impact here.
This is the Church of St. George in Sofia, Bulgaria. It began in the early 4th century as a Roman bath. It's became a church inside the walls of the Roman city. Sofia was named as Serdica, Serdica. And it's just changed hands over time. It's currently from a Bulgarian Orthodox church. We came upon this in December of last year. Yeah. St. John Letny's Chapel, 1350. It is so cool that we saw it in the fog, but right below, and you can't see outside, it's surrounded by a lake. This is on a peninsula. We have to go back when it's sunny.
Yeah, we have to go back when we can see.
Yeah.
Although we got some really beautiful photos because of the fog. This is inside that same church. This is the sort of place people kind of go to on pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And it's not something where they don't have services there.
And just to point out, here we go. You can see up in here where the red pointer is, some little swirls of paper. Those are wishes and hopes that people have stuck into the walls in hopes of having good things happen to their family and friends. So it's a place of pilgrimage. And those are 3 candles for the 3 of us who were there. This is St. John the Apostle Church. It happens to be inside of a monastery, very old as well. And then inside the church itself, some beautiful frescoes. They tried to repair them. Here are the husband and wife who helped pay to make the church happen. So they're
the church benefactors.
Thank you. I knew it was a big word there. Here we are in Asenevgrad. This happens to be the Church of the Holy Mother of God, another really beautiful church.
Before you move on, I'm going to zoom in on this just a little bit. And I want you to look at the construction. There's rows of clay tiles, and then above that, a few rows of stone, and then clay tiles again. This is a construction technique. This was built not all that long ago, but it's a construction technique common in the Roman era. So that construction has been kept in place for a long time.
A view from above. Here we are in Veliko Tarnovo, another place we'll show you some photos of. This is no longer a church. It was a cathedral at one point in time, but the Russians assumed control and did some painting. And this is very brutalist. I didn't zoom in if you want to zoom in.
Yeah, okay.
Very brutalist style of painting. What we normally don't really see this in.
We haven't seen this in any other building. This is pretty amazing art, though.
Yeah. Again, another view from the inside.
Well, you gotta wait till it shows that.
Okay, on to some monasteries.
We're becoming concerned about time, by the way, so we'll probably talk more quickly now.
This is Rila Monastery, south of Sofia. Again, it is probably the most famous monastery in Bulgaria. Eastern Orthodox, Bulgarian Orthodox, started in the 10th century.
It's still a functioning monastery, but it's also a destination. It's rather like the fifth graders all go to the Capitol building in Oregon. The fifth and sixth graders all go to Rila Monastery in Bulgaria.
Here's some of the painting that you'll see, but this represents how every single space in this place is painted with a story. And if you were a believer and you wanted to know stories of the Bible, you wouldn't have to read it. You could just look and see what's going on.
It's like a graphic novel.
Yeah. On to the monastery in Driabino. This is from the 12th century. What I wanted to point out is that mark above the window, that was hit during the uprising by the Ottomans. So they went after churches and monasteries.
The monasteries were very important in the revolution.
On to another pretty amazing monastery. This is Bachkovo Monastery. This is south of us here in Bulgaria, Plovdiv. Very ornate painting, quite beautiful. Again, no space spared from art on this. Okay. And on to some historic sites. Here we are in central Bulgaria in what is deemed the Valley of the Thracian Rulers. This is a Thracian tomb, the entrance to a Thracian tomb. It's in a mound. 4th century BCE, it was used as a temple and then became a tomb for a Thracian ruler. There's the entrance to it. It's Shushmanets. It's a beehive style, very traditional. So 4th century BC. And then here we are looking at Thracian dolmen, and these are considered, how would we interpret these? They started around the 12th, like 1200 BCE, 1100 BCE, precursors to some of these more elaborate tombs, but they're found mixed in the primarily south and eastern part of Bulgaria.
This particular one was in the middle of a farmer's field.
Yeah. Here we are at a Thracian city of Perperikon. Was this where Alexander got his?
Alexander the Great is said to have gotten a charge from Oracle. That's it. Yeah, oracle. We can each fill out sentences. Some oracle told him he was going to rule all of what is now the Middle East, and he headed out from here.
Here's a throne carved into one, and there's a shadow. Someone explaining there's a throne carved into a rock as well. Beautiful, very tip-top hill. They had cisterns up in this location. Pretty amazing place.
Unlike most of the places, it's not restored. It is what the archaeologists have found. It's not rebuilt.
Here we are these are rock niches. They're in around the same area, southeastern Bulgaria. Again, Thracian. They were thought to be connected to funeral rituals. They may have held small urns or symbols of the deceased. They're amazingly similar, and they were really very high on these mountains. I don't know how they...
Yeah, somebody hung up there. This we're showing you not because it's particularly interesting, it's because of its particular placement. This is in the middle of the Capitol building, or capital of Sofia. They discovered this collection of Roman ruins when they were trying to build a metro through the area. It was very difficult to build a metro because they kept running into Roman ruins. In fact, here in Plovdiv, they have said they will never even attempt it because there's nowhere to dig.
This is along the Danube, actually not far from the Danube. It's called Nicholas ad Istrum. It is a city that was founded by Trajan around 100 AD. Around 100 AD. And by the way, we saw no one there. This was in March. Nobody was there visiting. We were the only visitors.
And we were there for several hours.
Yeah, wandering around.
Same place.
Typical Roman road. This is in a town not too far from us. It's called Hisaria. They've done a really good job of keeping the outer walls of the fortress as intact as possible. So this is original walls from the Romans.
Kind of gets in the way of driving through town.
Yeah, it did. Okay, I'm going to let you talk about this.
Okay.
Be cognizant of the time.
Yes, I'll try to talk quickly. On the lower right here, you see some construction. That's, well,
yeah,
right in here. That's this, which is a bunker built during the Cold War to protect this, which is a barbed wire fence that kept people both outside Bulgaria because the Turks are right. You can see Turkey from here, although it doesn't look much different from Bulgaria. But they were actually less trying to keep the Turks out than working to keep the Bulgarians in.
So this is the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, this is
literally the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
And we're going to show you some things that are kind of scary, but here's another that part of the fencing.
And then this, if you look closely right in here, you'll see that this was electrified. Actually, in two ways. One, to make it so it was really unpleasant to touch, but also to send signals when somebody touched the fence so that they would know that there was someone they needed to deal with. This is a guard station. Obviously, this has not been used in some time. It's not as old as you might think. This was in use up until about 1990. This is inside that bunker. Interesting enough, but it's the next view. This is for them to be able to observe out. This is actually quite a rise. You can see a long way from this bunker without the weeds. And this is what soldiers do.
They left graffiti that says,
right here,
stay only 13 months, meaning I only have 13 months left on my tour.
And then over here, you see 89.
Yeah.
That's when he was there, 1989. So not all that long ago was this in use.
I think another one says Oshte 16.
Yeah, this one says 16 months right here.
16 months left.
This is the headquarters facility, obviously not in great shape anymore. Only 30 years ago they were living in this, but here we see
the sign says, we translated it.
Oh.
When a signal is received from C100, meaning that system that we saw, the electrific, act fast and boldly to detain the violators, meaning the people who are trying to leave the Eastern Bloc, right? The Soviet bloc.
These are three heroes of the location.
Yeah, heroes of the border guards.
And
yeah. What kind of is shocking, this was all just left. They just walked away when this, when everything broke up. These are people's grandparents, which these three gentlemen may well still be with us here in Bulgaria. Yeah.
Although when all this stopped happening, nearly nearly a third of the population of Bulgaria moved into other countries. We went from about 9 million in Bulgaria down to about 6 million. And now it's almost back up to 7 million, lots of returnees, and of course, some growth through birth.
Okay, some photos from the capital. This is the capital, Sofia. This is the main pedestrian way called Vitocha Boulevard.
It's only empty because it's early.
Yeah.
If it was noon,
Yeah,
it would be crowded.
Lots of stuff going on. Another nice view looking south to Vitosha Mountain. Another nice view. This is the National Theater. This is the president's house. And the guards come out and change at noon and do some more.
Lots of goose stepping around.
Elaborate. Here's the St. George's Cathedral. We're actually in a hotel. And on the other side, the building we're looking at just across is the president's house. This is where he does his work. This happens to be the National Parliament on the right, and very strong Soviet architecture there. And then on the left is the Council of, did I say it was a Council of Ministers?
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially the cabinet building.
University of Sofia. I'm hoping our daughter goes there soon. We're moving on to Rusa, which is a beautiful town on the Danube, North Bulgaria. Some pretty traditional architecture from
Quite
there.
the city in the bottle sort of thing. This gives you context, though. A building built about 1900 and a Hesburger sign in the building next door. Hesburger is a burger chain out of Finland that's very well represented in Bulgaria.
Some more beautiful architecture from that time. Again, Rusa is just a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's city in a bottle, no question.
And then for something completely different, the Black Sea coast, very famous with the Russians for all of their years of vacationing. They came to the Black Sea coast, the Eastern Bloc countries vacationed here. This is beautiful sand, and it's a lovely place to go. Very inexpensive compared to a lot of places in Europe. This is the Sea Garden in Varna.
That directly fronts the beach she just showed you.
Here's a wild beach with Jan on it, and our friend Patrick is laying down. We rented that kayak and kayaked around this pretty large point to go to this wild beach, and had a day over there. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, we left a beach where you could reach out and touch somebody on either side of you, to go to this wild beach where there were like 10 people there.
It was lovely. Here's another view of the beach. And then in the background, you can see the city of Varna extending along the way.
All along up here.
Yeah. Another view of a neighborhood in Varna.
This is Balchik. In fact, this building is the minaret tells you that it's a mosque, but it was also part of the palace of the Romanian queen in about 1920. The northeast portion of Bulgaria was ceded to Romania following World War I, and given back as World War II approached. And so the Romanian queen really liked this area. There's a beach not far from here that has been completely resanded with sand from Cuba they thought was more pleasant. So they hauled it in boats. This is just part of the palace. We actually stayed in the palace. You could too. It's available it belongs to a university now, but they use it for overnight stays.
This is the town of Sozopol. It's on the southern Bulgaria coast. And we're wandering through. It has some more traditional, like wooden-based architecture, which is kind of surprising. There isn't more stucco, because most places there is stucco. This is a town near the very southeast of Bulgaria, Sinamorets, ocean side, beautiful.
It's actually seaside, but we haven't figured out what the difference is between an ocean and a sea.
And in fact, we walked all the way to the border with Turkey. There's a river that separates us, that we're looking south into Turkey from there. So we're at the most extreme. Some photos from a very old town in Bulgaria. Our daughter was shocked at how large the cotton candy came out. Her first visit back as a teenager, so she was happy.
This is the first Bulgarian capital. So it has a large fortress and lots of older construction.
This is the hotel we always stay at. We spent New Year's there, Hotel Gurko in Veliko Tarnovo.
Named for the Russian general who liberated Bulgaria from the Ottomans. He didn't do it all by himself.
There's some beautiful scenes.
Lots of steps.
This happens to be the old fortress reconstructed of the first Bulgarian kingdom. Really nice, beautiful walk. Love going there. It's a beautiful place to visit. And here's a view from on high, looking down on the city itself.
You can see why they put a fortress here, because you could defend it pretty easily.
And here's some street art from Veliko Tarnovo. Some pretty stuff. Okay, some mountains. We have a lot of mountain ranges here in Bulgaria. Here's a view far off. I believe this is maybe the Pirin Mountains.
I believe you're correct.
A typical village in the mountains in Bulgaria. This happens to be Shiroka Laka. We've moved on to a village named Zhirobna. This is another beautiful wooden village. A lot of walls represent a lot of rock walls are created to represent and hold as fencing. And in fact, you'll see here's a traditional traffic jam in Bulgaria.
Yes.
We've been in these. But these goats came down from the hills, one guy, many goats, and they know exactly where they're supposed to go. They stop in front of their house and a little door will let them in. So it's pretty amazing to
they just wandered along, and a goat or two would drop off the flock as they wandered into the city.
Again, more traditional building, but I will point out the slate roofs, very common in the mountains here because there's so much slate.
They have to weigh a tremendous amount.
Yeah. This is Triapna in central Bulgaria. We're moving to beautiful scene. We have the benefit of staying, a great benefit of staying in someone's home overnight. She took an old village home and renovated it and recreated it into a stunning location. So pretty amazing and very traditional Bulgarian scene, fireplace to cook with, etc.
This is just her vacation house. It's not, it's not a guest house or anything, but we were supposed to stay, this is still the same home. We were supposed to stay in a hotel, and it turned out the town that we were supposed to stay in got all bought out for a wedding. These are all the same home. So we couldn't stay in the hotels. There were 3 hotels in town, and they were all sold out for that one wedding. So we had to find something else at the last moment.
This is the Arda River. This is Majurovo in southeastern Bulgaria. Our family does a lot in this exact location. In fact, we got down and swam in that river a couple of times. So it's a pretty cool place. Reminds me of Oregon. That looks a lot like Oregon. And we are now on to the last set of mountains. And these are the Strange Mountains. Very mystical, religious and pagan rituals. Lots of locations in these mountains for things. Pretty beautiful place.
Yeah, this is just because it looks so beautiful and green.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't put notes on this. Okay, so here's an opening into a rock that leads to, apparently, and I didn't put the notes on the slide for this, but let me explain. This is actually our really good friend who is visiting here right now, and he's visiting with the man in the blue jacket who took us all out into the mountains. This is like a womb cave, W-O-M-B, and tradition has it that if women are having troubles conceiving, if they put themselves in the cave and then come out through, it can increase their chances with fertility. So here's another small shrine to a woman.
A hole in the rock. Another hole in the rock, but you can see they built steps to get in. It has a religious meaning. This is just it was so green there. It gets a lot more rain than most of Bulgaria, so it grows a lot more. And there's some of the rain coming down in the form of a waterfall. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, quite a beautiful place.
And that's what we had to say this weekend. Boy, did we get right to the minute.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to talk specifically about Plovdiv. And we will.
Sharon, so we can.
Yeah. We will talk about our hometown. It's the place we live. We really like it, and we would encourage you to come and visit. As a matter of fact, we have 7 guest rooms in our apartment because our apartment's in a hotel that has 7 rooms in it. So, but you will find it to be quite an amazing town. It is, by most accounts, may not quite be, but it is claimed to be the oldest continuously inhabited city location in all of Europe, with 8,000 years of continuous habitation.
And we'll show you the history from 8,000 years to present. So that will be next week.
That's what we're here for.
We're happy to hang on if anyone has questions. I do know that we had a question about comparing costs. What is the name of the calculator that we use to compare like Ashland costs to
Numio. If you go to there's a website called Numio, and I'll put a link onto the Moodle to get you there. But if you go to Numio, you can put in any 2 cities in the world, and it's all crowdsourced data for how much it costs to buy groceries there, what rent costs, how much it costs to buy a craft beer. There's a lot of different information there. But I'll get a link to the Moodle for that. I hope people are able to get into the Moodle. I have put some links there. I also want to let you know I was able to get.
I have a question.
I was able to get the video together for last week's show by midday Saturday for you. It was actually quite late Saturday for me. I'll try to do the same here with this video. Next week, I will be in Eugene. Amy will still be in Bulgaria. I'm flying to Eugene to pick up our 24-year-old daughter and help her move to Plovdiv. She's relocating here, and we've got an apartment for her, and we're all ready. Amy's more excited than I am about that, but I'm sure it will work out brilliantly in the long run. So somebody asked about the form of government. This is very much a parliamentary government. They have a president, but he's not particularly powerful. In much the same way as most parliamentary arrangements, the prime minister is more powerful and leads the legislature. There is a great deal of corruption here. There are people who would tell you it's a kleptocracy, which is a government that steals from its people. I don't think it's quite that bad, but there's a lot of corruption. When we talk about, oh, that's right, I'm sorry, the president is a woman.
Yes. New.
Somewhat by default, she wasn't elected to be president. She was elected to be the vice. She wasn't vice president either.
I think she
was. She?
Oh,
well, yeah. And then the president stepped aside. But yes, it's led by a woman. In fact, there are a lot of women in the government here.
Yes.
We have right in our neighborhood our own parliamentary representative, and she drives a really nice Porsche that gets parked in our parking lot occasionally. What? It's a nice Porsche. But anyway, I don't think the corruption is quite as bad here as people talk like it is.
But
we haven't seen that to be a problem. Yeah, we just don't know.
The mode of transport. There is, at least in most of Bulgaria, we've got trains. They're pretty old.
The trains are interesting. They're upgrading the trains right now. And in order to do so, they're rebuilding all the railroad tracks so that they can go faster. When they get the railroad tracks redone, they're moving from 1950s rolling stock to 1980s rolling stock that they're buying from Germany, because Germany has much more current. There is no high-speed rail here. This is not France. This is not Germany.
Not yet.
It's not Austria. It's Bulgaria.
There's a goal to really pick up speed to get between places. So rail is possible. Smaller buses are also very convenient and very popular to be used here. We have a bus system, and here in Plovdiv, we have buses. In Sofia, the capital, there's a metro, super slick, goes to the airport. We use it all the time when we're up in Sofia.
It's pristine too. It's very new and really nice. They also have trolleys that run on tracks, and electrified trolleys and trams.
It's easy to rent a car here as an American.
And cheap.
An American, you need your international driver's license and your American driver's license. And you go in, and I've rented a car like that I think I just did my 10th time.
Yeah, at least
10th time in a year. So pretty easy to get around. European rules for driving, but pretty easy.
No, you're not getting around European rules for driving. There
No.
need to be a period in there. It's pretty easy to get around, and it's European-wide rules for driving. So all the signage is EU consistent. That sounded bad the way it
I
came
know
out.
I didn't mean it.
So, anything else? Anyone? We really do love it here. We're very happy here and very comfortable as well.
And as we said, next week, you're going to spend an hour with us. We will talk about what we know best, which is this town. This town is less known than others, I'd say, in Bulgaria. We don't understand why, and I think you will also wonder why it's not as on the tourist maps like Rome. I'm going to say it, Rome, but it is a pretty stunning place, and we'll get into some history with you.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you one and all for hanging with us. We really, really appreciate it. It's been a good time for us.
Look for the link to the video, not just the video, but he's also going to post the PowerPoint in its entirety, as well as a PDF with the notes, so you can see the locations we've just been talking. And the URL for Numio, so you can compare prices in various places. All right. Thanks, everyone.